Hi, everybody. It's March 13th, 2025, and this is the Backdrop Weekly Dev Meeting. We get together every week to talk about development priorities for Backdrop CMS. This week, we have a number of things on the schedule, including updating jQuery, CKEditor, PHP, a bunch of things about just getting versions up to date in the next version of Backdrop Core. And if our special guests all arrive, then we'll also probably talk about layouts and layout paragraphs module specifically. So, well, before we get into all of that, we'll do some introductions. My name is Nate Lampton. I'm core committer and technical lead for the Backdrop project, calling it Oakland, California. And we've got a half dozen folks so far today. We'll start off with Luke, and then we'll go to Martin.
Hey, my name is Luke McCormick. I'm a business analyst and project manager, and thanks to AI these days, a developer in the San Francisco, Oakland Bay Area. Specifically, I live in Martinez. I'm findable as Cell Ear on various platforms, and I should stop talking. Do you want me to?
No,
Are you
thanks,
guiding the
Luke.
next one?
Yeah, I'll run through it.
All
We'll
right.
go to Martin, and then we'll go to Tim.
Hi, Martin Price, Yorkshire Pudding around Backdrop area. I'm a Backdrop web developer and contributor to Contrib and occasionally core.
Thanks, Martin. Tim, and then Izzy.
I'm Tim Stalker. I work for CU Denver in Colorado, and I work for the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, where I currently maintain a fairly out of date, well, it's not out of date yet, install profile called Web Express.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Izzy, and then Eli.
Oh, hi. I'm Izzy. I'm a freelance developer in Vancouver, Canada, up north there. And I'm here to participate. Thanks.
Thanks, Izzy. Eli, and then Irina.
Hi, my name is Eli Lissick. I'm a developer with Giant Rabbit. I'm calling from San Diego, California.
Thanks, Eli. And Irina, if you're available.
Hi, I'm Irina Zaks. I am web developer and site builder and community person. And today I'm working in Mountain View.
Great, thanks, Irina. I know you're here specifically for talking about paragraphs and layout paragraphs. I'm going to run through the other items we have on the agenda, hoping that Laren may show up and have some more information to facilitate that discussion. So we'll go through those other items first and get to layout paragraphs later, hopefully. Okay, so IndigoZella flagged a couple of items in the forum.backdropcms.org. There's a category for weekly meetings if you'd like to get ahead of topics for a particular meeting, and you can create a forum post over there. And she flagged a couple of items here. One is that she'd like to see this PHP 8.4 support land as quickly as possible, as would I. And the pull request, I think that it's working. And a handful of questions. Okay, so it looks like this is still kind of on my plate since I filed the pull request to get this to resolve some of the lingering feedback. But I think that the really important thing is just the timing of things, that we want to get this in as soon as possible into the next release to make sure that we avoid any kind of regressions bumping up to the new PHP version, because it did make some syntax changes that require special effort, and that will probably extend to contrib as well. We already made the announcement on backdropcms.org that we're dropping support for PHP 5.6 and 7.0, and that's part of this pull request. So this pull request actually bumps the minimum version because our analysis is that it's impossible to support PHP 5.6 and 7.0 the same time as PHP 8.4. That is in line with pretty much every other CMS in existence, including WordPress, that the minimum versions have been bumped up, in part because of this particular problem. So yeah, this is on me. I'll take a look at it as soon as possible. Indigozell filed this one quite a while ago, all the way back in February of last year. And the suggestion here is good. We already have something the equivalent of jQuery update in core, because you're allowed to toggle between jQuery 1 and version 3. And this extends it so that jQuery 4 also becomes an option. She pointed out that it's interesting that there's now a second beta of jQuery. She pointed out that Drupal 11 seems to already include jQuery 4, even though it's a beta version, which is an interesting decision to do that. Oh, I also meant to mention new contrib projects this week. As Indigozella's got her head in this space, she wrote a module called jQuery Migrate Helper, which bundles the jQuery Migrate JavaScript library and can help identify your code sections that are not compatible with jQuery 4. So she's really getting ahead of this, because in order for this to be useful, we also need to have the ability to use jQuery 4. So first we need to get this in, then jQuery Migrate Helper will actually be useful to identify jQuery 4.0 issues. It's possible that I'm also underselling this, and maybe this also helps move between versions 1 and version 3, but I'm not totally sure. So yeah, so this would also be a nice thing to get moving. I don't see any harm in going ahead and putting in jQuery 4 in core. It's inevitable it will be there eventually, but I'm not sure if we'll make it the default yet. I think that we may want to wait on that until there's a final release of jQuery rather than the beta version. So yeah, we'll probably leave the default at jQuery 3 for at least for the Backdrop 131 release. All right, let's see here. Find mechanism, select layout type. That gets into layout paragraphs. Let me see. I've had a couple of people join. Joseph is here now and Tim is here now, but not Laren. Okay, I'll keep talking about general update issues then. One more thing about just general dependencies is that there's been, as always, a couple new versions of CKEditor 5 been rolling out. Just last week, CKEditor 44.3 came out. And so we have a pull request, but it only gets us up to 44.2. So this issue probably needs a reroll to get up to date to the latest version of CKEditor 5. But I think an item that is exciting for me personally, at least, is that the new version includes emoji support finally. So I'm super excited about being able to have emojis out of the box. And it does include things like if you do the colon smile, you can auto-complete on the smileys now. So I'm pretty excited about that. I think this should probably be an out-of-box button and configuration option. But first we need to get up onto version 44. So these are separate issues. First one is 44.3. First one is update CKEditor, and then the next issue after that is then we can turn on the emoji functionality, which this has been open for a while. Okay, well, those are the topics that we had mentioned before the meeting. Laren still hasn't popped in here quite yet, but I do know that his list of priorities to better facilitate layout paragraphs functionality in Backdrop is underpinned on this issue, issue 6808. allow the ability to specify a layout template type. So inside of individual layout templates, let me see if I can find one in here. I'm not sure he actually included one. Yeah, I'm not seeing an actual layout in here where it would be defined. Because what I imagine this is doing is that layout templates have .info files, just like modules and themes do, that they're a top level concept inside of Backdrop. And so what this theoretically allows us to do is in the .info file specify a layout template type in there. And then we can start specifying different layout templates for different purposes. One of which Laren would probably use for layout paragraphs. And I'm not totally sure whether or not the layout templates he has in mind would be used outside of layout paragraphs as well. Like if we would have a general layout template that was, single column and 2-column or something like that. And if that would be made available everywhere, or if layout paragraphs would bundle its own templates, which I think that's another whole little problem of, yeah, I'm not not totally sure you can bundle a layout inside of a module no more than you can bundle a theme inside of a module, like bundling 2 different concepts together. You can bundle modules inside of modules and even themes inside of themes, but I don't think you can bundle, layouts inside of themes or, layouts inside of modules, at least not in the normal .info way. There is a hook layout info that lets a module do that.
So the other
I think-
related issue to this that would help with that would be the ability to make different projects dependencies. So if we can't bundle a layout within a module, can we make a layout a dependency of a module?
Do the
Yeah.
flexible layout templates use like an info alter hook to add new options there?
Yeah, so I think flexible templates use hook layout info
Okay.
I think it actually is called hook layout template info now, to create, because a module can provide layouts, but not through .info files. They're provided through a hook, if you want to bundle a layout template into a module.
Okay, so we could do something similar, like provide we could provide that layout template type for like page versus not like full page versus not full page type of distinction, and then any modules that need a not full page layout could just apply that using the same concept.
Yep. And I think for backwards compatibility, we would just make it so that if layout template type is not specified, it would be implied that it's page level
Okay.
template, because that's what all of our templates are right now. And that would make it so that it would be backwards compatible. Well, I left a bunch of time here in the event that we wanted to talk about layout paragraphs, but our star speaker is not it's not here. So if there's other topics or more that we want to talk about, I kind of blitzed through the beginning, but yeah.
Can we talk about this one right now? It seems related. It's issue 5316, and Izzy's giving us a link to another one which might be related. But 5316 is allow themes to declare dependencies on modules and layouts. I think there's a few different issues in the issue queue with, like, there's another one that I think is allow any project to declare any other project a dependency. And I'm going to the one that Izzy just, oh no, that's okay. That's a different issue. It's not related to this. I'm sorry. Sorry, Izzy. Izzy's thing has nothing to do with this, but anyways, so 5316 this has been talked about a lot. Is there Is there I forget, Nate, is there a reason like we can't have other types of projects dependent on other types of projects?
No, not that I'm aware of.
And how big of a problem is it? I mean, does that feel like a lot of work to solve, or is it a fairly small thing? This is definitely for recipes would be really helpful if I could like have a recipe or a module dependent on a recipe or something like that. You know, and a recipe is just a module. So if I could have a theme that is dependent on a recipe, that would be helpful, or whatever.
Yeah, I don't believe that this is a large lift.
I don't know. So Arena has suggested in chat that there's a PR for this, but I like Martin, I'm familiar with the issue, but I'm unfamiliar with any PRs. If there is a PR for this, I'd love to relate to that PR.
That was in I think that was mentioned in one of discussions, either yesterday in the office hours or in one of the Zulip threads. I think Justin mentioned it.
Well, there might be some miscommunication on it, or I'm missing, but I know there's several issues open for this. I don't know if there's a PR. But if there is, please draw our attention to which issue if
And
you find it.
maybe it was issue, not PR. I'm sorry about
Right. I suspect that was it, issue. Yeah.
I think I confused the PR and issue. Sorry about that.
No problem. Well, so if we could, we just got to find somebody to work on this. So.
Yeah, I don't think this had any movement. Like, there's no pull request.
Right.
This is actually the first time I've seen this issue, despite it being open for years now.
I feel like there's another issue that's like that's very similar. That's like allow any type of project to be dependent on any other type. And that might be a separate issue that's open somewhere. Whereas this one's specific. This is allow themes to declare dependencies and modules and layouts. So.
Yeah, well, this is interesting. Declare dependency on a layout template. I don't even think that ability exists anywhere, like the ability to depend on a template. So that's also kind of interesting that this might be, we might try to separate this out if we want to do just modules, because depending on a layout template might be a different level of complexity. Yeah. But I don't know, there's nothing to go on right now, so it probably doesn't need to be split quite yet.
Okay, well, maybe if I get a time, I'll try to find the related issues and kind of link them together so we can see them all at once and decide.
All right. Let's see, Izzy, you're posting links into the chat. Would you like me to pull them up?
Well, the last one I just posted was 6593, and I'm not sure if that's the one Tim is referring to.
It is, well, as I said, there might be a couple of them, and this would definitely.
Here it is.
It's not the one I was thinking of, and I'd forgotten that I had done this.
Yes.
But I feel like there's at least one other out there, but there could even be more than that. So.
Yeah, great. So this is allowing modules to declare layout templates as dependencies.
Yeah.
Yep. So if this was in place first, then this one could potentially be combined, allowing themes to also depend on layout templates. But we need the mechanism to depend on the layout template, because right now that doesn't exist.
Sure. And and as I thought, this is coming up through recipes. Like it would really be helpful, to be able to do this with a recipe, because I can't include it. I don't think there's any way to include a layout template in a recipe. So if I could depend on it, that would be helpful.
It feels to me like we are trending more and more towards treating layout templates as configuration rather than projects.
You mean like using flexible layout templates, or?
Well, that or having other modules using the info alter to just add them. Like Like it seems almost like the reason that they're projects is just to add CSS and JavaScript files to them. And that for basically any other use case, it'd be a lot easier for people to just throw a config file in and have it be treated like a layout template.
Yeah, it's yeah, I think it's surprising that and maybe I'm not understanding our ecosystem fully here, but there aren't like a huge number of layout templates available like as projects. And I think it's because the general need for layout templates is fairly small because the out of box layouts, using Bootstrap plus flexible layouts fit most people's use cases, which is great.
Like, yeah, this is just a thought that just occurred to me, like looking at these issues right now, is that it might be better actually if we had a module that just was an interface between sort of a config file format and layout templates that everything else depended on instead.
Yeah, geez, I just
Instead
pulled
of-
up our listing here. I can almost count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 11 layout templates in the 10-year history of
Well, some of
Backdrop.
those projects actually have a bunch of layout templates in them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but still, I don't know. I just had that thought just now that it might be better to have a module that does this for us instead of.
I mean, the flexible layout templates now in core reduces the need for this a lot. I forget, can you do a flexible layout template in config or not?
I think you can.
Yeah, you can. If you
Okay.
want to have your module ship with a flexible layout, you can do that.
Okay,
Just
so
like you can have it ship with a view.
well, then, that might really solve the issue I raised for a recipe. I don't remember if I have to read through this. I don't remember if I read through or if I tried that at the time. But I think there was like an existing, my recipe wanted an existing contrib layout template, but I couldn't depend on it. But maybe I could sort of recreate the layout in flexible layouts and it just include it in my recipe, not depend on.
Yeah, this may change in the future. We'll see. Like,
Yeah.
in some ways, we were fortunate, even 10 years ago, that we picked the winner. We didn't know it was the winner at the time. Like, Bootstrap has continued to be the dominant player in CSS grid frameworks, and we've really benefited from that. Yeah, because the only other layout framework I see in here is Zurb, which
But is
yeah.
there? I wonder how we would get this, like get metrics on this, comparing the amount of people who are just using CSS grid and using no framework.
Yeah, that would be yeah, but that would have to be in a custom layout. Yeah, and it would be really hard for us to tell
Yeah.
what they're using if they get to add their own CSS files, Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm wondering where we can use telemetry here. And I mean, we could use telemetry to identify how many sites use flexible templates, for example. That might be informative in itself. Because right now we don't have that number, I don't think.
I mean, I think Greg has suggested in the past, and I don't know how realistic this is, that the future could be that exclusively flexible layouts. Like, why do we even have layout projects if we have the ability to, with flexible, we didn't have flexible layouts at the beginning when we created
Right.
layout projects. And I think Greg has argued that maybe that's the direction we should be moving, is eliminating the need for layout projects at all. Just have a selection of predefined flexible layouts that are editable.
I think that there are lots of people who want to have a preset layout and don't want to create any customization.
Yeah, but you could have a default selection of pre-configured flexible layouts. The advantage would be, Irina, is that we could have the same set of layouts available, but they would all be flexible layouts, so anybody could take one of them and modify them. Whereas right now you can't modify the layout template, you can just create a new one and switch. So I think from a user perspective, it wouldn't change at all. It's just it would make them more flexible and sort of reduce the need to have them as template projects. As what Joseph said, they would be config files then instead of templates, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some, I mean, to be a little contrary to that, Tim, on some projects, I know Stanford did this, and it's probably what Irina's thinking of, is some sites decide to make a custom layout that act like the page template did in Drupal 7, where it's like the header and the footer are hard-coded in the layout template. And then when you're configuring the layout for a page, you can't actually put anything in the header and the footer because it's hard-coded into the template. And that use case, especially for people coming from Drupal 7, I think is not uncommon, where they don't want people to be able to modify the header and the footer or need to be able to place different blocks in there.
Well, yeah, and I was repeating an argument I've heard from Greg that I don't know if it makes sense, but I think you could do both. That maybe what Greg's arguing is not that we get rid of that ability, but that we just don't ship like template files in core.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And the template files we do ship would be flexible ones.
Yeah, they'd all be flexible, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean eliminating the other possibility. It just means that like from those ones in core that we don't need to ship them as right, they could all be flexible. Anyways, we'll have to wait for Greg to get back to that.
I think that
I don't know sort of how much of a disadvantage this is, but I notice when you are doing something with flexible layouts, that the region names, that they're all like a hex code. That they don't have like friendly machine names.
That shouldn't be true anymore, but I know what you're talking about, and that should have been fixed. So
I think it's still there. I've just spun up a new site, and
let's talk about it later, Martin, because I know I thought it was fixed, and I ran into that problem, and then I sort of figured out why, but I've forgotten it all now. But that should be solved. And obviously, absolutely, if we did what I was just talking about, we'd have to improve flexible layouts a lot. There's a lot of weaknesses in flexible layouts right now, which are blockers to like using them exclusively. So Izzy did post another issue that was different, 6836.
Yeah, if I can just have a couple of minutes to explain why I thought this would be worth raising. It needs a bit of direction. The issue here is that if you use the simplified layout, it's also dependent on the setting that is in the admin config system site information, where you have logo settings. Use the logo supplied by the active theme. And if you use the logo supplied by the active theme and the simplified login screen, you get the backdrop icon, which is really kind of where we were trying to get to with this whole business of the simplified login, so that there would be a generic login. In the last comment on that issue, I've posted what happens if you decide to use Gin as your admin theme. You end up with the Gin logo. Now, if you actually give it a path to a logo for your site information, then it always shows your own logo. So that's not an issue. The question is whether the admin theme being used for the simplified login, if it should always use the backdrop core logo. rather than say the gin logo or something else. And that's where I think I'd like to see some direction. If it's going to be an admin theme, it should use the backdrop logo. That would be easy.
I'm sharing the screenshots that
Yeah.
Izzy was talking about. So
Can you
Yeah.
repeat your suggestion there, Izzy?
Sorry?
Can you repeat your suggestion? You said at the very end of that you think that
Yeah, I
something
think
should
that,
happen, and
I think
oh.
that if a person wants to use a simplified login that is using the admin theme, then they would probably want to show the generic backdrop logo rather than some other admin theme logo. And if they don't want that, then they can always put their custom path to their logo in.
so if I can try
I
to,
think then we could pretty much wrap up this issue in that we might have to change the wording a bit, but where the site information says use the logo of the active theme, it could be or admin logo.
but yeah, ultimately what you're suggesting, Izzy, is that it not use the theme logo, right? That it either use backdrop or the user supplied logo, but never like a theme logo is your proposal. Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it.
That makes sense to me. I don't know why you would ever want the gin theme logo here.
Is that actually the gin logo, or is it using that because it's assuming that it's a Drupal theme and not a backdrop theme?
No, it's I'm pretty sure that is the gin, the logo that's in the gin theme. I just set this up this morning on a new demo site. And
So is
Oh,
the
Laren's here, by the way.
Yeah, so in both cases here, Joseph, the logo being shown is the logo of it's whatever theme is being used. It like that's the
Right.
short of it. Is if it's a front end theme or if it's a back end theme, the logo of the current theme is what's being shown here. And it just so happens that Seven's logo is the backdrop logo.
So do we want a third option there that's like use provided logo or use the theme logo or use the backdrop core logo? Is that essentially what?
Well, so our choices are really that choice or just ruling out the theme logo, like
Because I think having some sort of hidden magic behavior where we just ignore that setting is not a good user experience.
if this were new, I would say to never provide this theme option. But if that's already an option, then I take your point that we wouldn't want to just hide it or remove it. That then maybe we just need to provide a third option. And maybe change the default so that the default is like to use the backdrop logo on new sites, not the theme provided. But that if somebody wanted to do the theme provided, they still could, I suppose. I just don't know why anybody would do that.
well, coming back to Joseph's point, it did make, I was wondering the same thing, whether a site might want to have a specific logo for their front end website, but a different logo for their back end login.
I think the use case for this is a site that has a custom admin theme. And so they put their own logo in there.
Sure.
Yeah, and also from my experience, the front end theme logo often is not really compatible with this appearance. Like imagine if the front end logo is light on dark, but then the admin theme is dark on light. If they're inverted, then sometimes you can end up with like a white logo on a white background here. The logo that you use on your front end theme is not always intended to be displayed in this way. So even using the front end logo here might not be the best solution. Although maybe we don't worry about it, and that's where, you know, the specify custom path comes in.
Yep.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, I don't know if we're going to settle this right now, but it's interesting.
If you do specify the custom path, then your front end logo will show in both places. So it won't, so you will get into that problem with contrast if it happens to be require an inverse. So if we're going to try and address all of those issues, then we will need more settings to allow the site to have both a front end and a back end logo. But I was kind of trying to get back to what was our original goal. And I thought our original goal was to have something that would give the backdrop logo as a generic.
I don't think that was ever the driving factor. That might have been like a side benefit, but that wasn't like why we did it. I don't think.
No, it was in fact entirely unintentional that the backdrop logo ended up on the login page at all, just because it was the logo of 7.
Oh, I thought, okay, I got sidetracked because people were talking about things like WordPress. It's a WordPress site. You're logging into a WordPress site or a Drupal site or whatever. But
I think each one of those examples had a logo, but I don't think that was what we were looking at. I think we were what we were looking at. The fact was that it was just login, right, on those sites. Whereas in Backdrop, it used to be you saw a header, you saw a footer, you saw all kinds of other stuff that we didn't think needed there. So it was less about getting a logo on the page than it was getting rid of all that other stuff. That was
like it. I like it with the logo, so there you go.
Oh, well, I think everybody else did too. I'm just saying that was like a side benefit, right? It wasn't what we were trying to do. The first goal was to get rid of everything else. And then it was like, oh yeah, okay, the logo there, that's nice.
Yeah, well, it would lead to the other thing of wanting to have the default ship with the use the logo if the theme of the active theme. Because right now it's a pretty bland login with just backdrop written there instead of the logo. So I was thinking 2 steps. Get this decision made and then change the default to use the active to use the theme of the logo of the active theme. Then we would have this out of the box. Anyway, I'm taking up too much time, obviously.
No, it's a good problem to try to solve. That's issue 6836. All right. Well, we made a big deal about talking about layout paragraphs. So, and Laren is here now. Thank you for jumping in, Laren. And last I saw in Zulip, you had outlined a plan for the steps that you want to take, but I'm not sure that there's any updates since then. But yeah, why don't you fill us in if there's anything new there?
Yeah, I posted that, and I don't think I've gotten too much feedback on it from people. Haven't had too much time to work on it since then either, but just to make sure it's clear what I'm trying to do. So there's a core issue with the PR, and I think when I left it, I haven't looked at it for a little while now, but I think when I left it, the tests were basically passing. But all I'm trying to do there is to allow some of the layout functionality to be kind of exposed to other uses. So instead of just the core layout and the core flexible layout type, it could allow an input of a layout type, so that, if paragraphs started using it, or if any other module or somewhere else in core wanted to use it, some of these functions would allow that layout type to be sent along. And then, for example, it would look in a config file that was layout.paragraph instead of layout.flexible, that kind of thing. So that was the first step I was trying to do. And then secondly, I had been working just on a layout paragraphs piece that would use that. And then I began to think I should maybe strip part of that out as a standalone that other modules could use as well for that sort of layout interaction kind of stuff. And so I have kind of a rough thing locally. I don't think I've shared it publicly, but that I'm trying to strip that piece out of to make it more broadly usable. And then I would get to the layout paragraphs piece to use that module, which then uses that new functionality in core, assuming that that would go in. I'm interested in people's feedback on that plan, first of all, and if that makes sense to other people the way it makes sense to me.
Yeah. I've said it before, I think different layout template types will be super beneficial because layout paragraphs isn't the only module that wants to use like smaller layouts. There's like a module called mini layouts, I think, that puts layouts inside of layouts. And the ability to put a layout inside of a block. Like there's lots of places where having the ability to nest layouts would be useful, or have different types of layouts. From the context you just said, you're imagining that layout paragraphs would provide its own templates, right? Is that the idea? Like those wouldn't be shareable with other modules?
That's the goal. Yeah, that's kind of my idea, is that in the same way, like, well, I won't muddy the waters with a separate conversation, but I think rather than having like every type of layout getting crammed into the main layouts page, you have your main layouts in this page, you have your layouts for paragraphs here, so that you don't have to pick through. If you're looking for a layout for your site, you don't have to pick through paragraph layouts. If you're looking for a layout for your paragraph, you don't have to pick through core layouts. And part of that core issue that I mentioned first is that I think it was Jen's idea at one point, actually, that these new types of layouts could have some kind of a flag or a property that says, is it a full page layout or a inner layout or smaller layout, whatever. And if it's a smaller layout, then it can skip the header and the footer and maybe not include some of those blocks that are only really full page context related. So that's part of that first thing as well. But yes, my short answer is I think it makes more sense from a user perspective not to muddy all these different layouts together, so that having different layout types also means managing them in probably different places. Even if, at some point I could conceivably see if you have a paragraph layout that really could be used elsewhere, that there would be a fairly easy way you could clone that to the other location as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at the pull request, and a suggestion I have, and maybe I should put this into the issue really rather than just discuss it here, is that we've got two different new properties on the layouts. You've got is full page, and then we've got layout template type. And this is just my first pass reading this, so forgive me if this doesn't make sense as a suggestion, but I don't see why these need to be separate. Like layout template type could be page, for example. And if you needed flexible layouts to also be considered page, then you could potentially have layout template type equals flexible page or something like that to consolidate these two things.
So you mean if only cores, page, and flexible types would ever get the full page treatment?
Right. Yeah.
So you couldn't specify it. It would just be, out of the box, that's what you get and you can't change it.
Yeah, because I'm wondering, like, is there this use case for having different so-called types of layouts that are also pages that need to be shown on the main listing of layout templates?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a use for that at the moment on my mind, but I don't know if anybody else does. But yeah, I mean, I think that seems reasonable to me from what I would imagine. I think I was trying to interpret Jen's comments into kind of a maximally flexible way, but
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, this would end up being a property in the info file too, right? If you
Mhm.
did a layout through an info file, you'd have to say is full page equals false. And you'd also have to say layout template type equals paragraphs. Is that right?
Honestly, it's been a little while since I looked at this and how I'll also clarify, this is a pretty rough first pass, just trying to get something working. And I would love to have any kind of feedback like this to look at after I refresh my mind on how I did this in the first
Okay.
place.
I don't know. I'm kind of going back and forth about, whether or not it might not even really matter because we were talking before you jumped on, Laren, about how layout templates are our least popular project type. There's only 11 contributed layout template projects. Um, and that's a good thing, really. It means that out-of-box templates, including flexible ones, are fitting most people's use cases, that they're not downloading or creating additional layout templates. And so, yeah, I guess I guess I'm kind of saying here is maybe getting caught up in the nitty-gritty of like, should this thing be one thing or two things, and what should we name it, might not really matter a whole lot because there probably isn't going to be a broad use of this in Contrib anyway. Well, anyway, I think this is a great start. Yeah, you have my support in trying to, move this forward because I think it would help a lot of projects.
Cool. Yeah, and if anybody else has a chance to look at it or even comment I think there's a Zulip thread. Irina started one specifically for layout paragraphs. I think there's an issue in the paragraphs queue. Any places there, I'm interested in people's feedback. So,
Lauren, will it be helpful if I have like wireframes of what it would be on the user end? I'm happy to create those. Because I
maybe
can,
at some point, but I'd say right now I have pretty clear ideas of what I'm planning to do going forward. And once you see those, if you see how things could be arranged differently and be better, that would be great. But basically, in terms of layout paragraphs, the way I'm envisioning it is once we have the ability to use these inner layouts, if people think of how to name things, I'd love to hear it as well, because I've just been calling them in my mind lately inner layouts. But the paragraphs would provide a submodule called layout paragraphs that is not just a port of the Drupal version of layout paragraphs, because it's going to be implemented with backdrop layouts, obviously, which is a different implementation. And that would provide right now you can select when you add a paragraph field, whether it's hidden or embedded, I think is the term. And so at that level, you would be able to choose layout UI. And then by default, if you've already got a paragraphs field and you change it to the layout UI, you would get the default inner layout, which is just so one cell, there's and it's just stacked vertically. So it would basically match the current up and down of the embedded widget right now. And then you would have the ability to create new inner layouts for paragraphs. And if you switched those in, you would then have the ability to move the paragraphs into the different layout regions, all using that same standard backdrop layouts user interface, very familiar, very drag and drop and friendly. So I think it's going to be pretty cool.
it's definitely going to be very cool. I think it is very important early in the project to review content editor's use case, because there's lots of things that can be done right now with tools that exist there. But if things are linked to layouts and we're creating layout per page, per node or something like this, then it can become configuration wise, it might not give you results that we content editors want. Because
I will count on you to be part of the early testing.
I'm available, at 2 p.m. today, Pacific.
Well, it's not going to be ready by then, but
Well, my availability is here. I think that one of interesting challenges is when we start writing down what we actually want from the content editor perspective, it gives developers slightly different, it surfaces requirements, and something will come up with a simpler solution than developers think content editors need. So I will try by next week to kind of draw examples, say, okay, this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3. This is what people use cases that might the reason why I'm bringing this up is we want to use the simplest possible solution. It's kind of my approach.
I'd be happy to look at whatever you put together for, feedback.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
I think one of the things I'm kind of interested in this is how what we call an inner layout, what we would call possibly a mini layout. I'm kind of hung up a bit on the terminology and concepts, because I kind of agree with Irina to see this visually working somehow, to try to then convert into a potential like code additions or whatever, is ultimately to be able to do this on a node basis. So you have a layout per node with the ability to leverage the backdrop layout system, the way it works, but then the ability to do more of an inner layout design that's not utilizing maybe all of the regions that are available in a layout template in core.
Yeah, and when you say per node, there is as I think you're familiar with the layout nodes project or module that does a per node thing. What I'm talking about with layout paragraphs would be more of a per paragraph field. And so you would just have to make sure that paragraph field was placed in a region on the outer layout that was big enough for it.
I think that the hope is to have it less on the structural basis and more on the like a content basis. Like the paragraphs, so we don't build different content types per node to place paragraphs differently or to modify paragraphs. This is addressed in the content area. So the same concept is what we're looking for in the higher ed for the content. So when we're adding paragraph to the content, so say we have a basic page, right? Basic page has paragraphs. I call them components because that nomenclature is important. If you give content editor something that says paragraph, it's very confusing. If you give them something that is called component, and we have text component, or we have image component, or we have listing view component. And Robert, I apologize for taking time from your presentation because I'm very interested in what you're going to show also. So we have these different components. So now if we want to have an addition, if we want to be able to place components not in the in the one layout, this is where layout paragraphs come in, similar to what is happening in Drupal 10, where I can say, I want this section to be 3 colons, or I want this section to be 2 colons, instead of using 2. So we're shifting from, we have 2 colon paragraph. We're shifting, okay, this is a 2 colon or 3 colon layout.
Correct.
I can put any of the component or components, which are backend is called paragraphs, in any of those regions. That's kind of the idea. There are other ways to build it, but this has proven to be very.
I mean, I think conceptually we're on the same page that we want to be able to use those layouts with paragraphs, and avoid the nested paragraphs where you have, this paragraph inside this one. So we can talk further about it, but I think we've got to pass the baton here at the moment for the next session.
Yeah, great. All right, let's go ahead and call it for today. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you everybody that brought issues, and Laren for jumping in on layout paragraphs. And yeah, we'll close now, and we've got user group meeting right after this. Tim, what's the topic?
Config, deploy, and using that with recipes. It's a new module that Robert Garagos put out.
Great. Okay, well, we'll close for now.